This is the exercise that transformed my portraits. Here's where I started, here's where I am now, and here's some of my other work. Now, before I knew about this, I spent years trying to draw, basically making absolutely zero progress. To be honest, I thought it was all talent deep down, so I never really stuck with it very long. However, one of the things that made me realize this was something you could learn was seeing other artists before and afters of their progress and hearing about the way they studied and practiced. And this exercise came up over and over again. After I started doing this, my work got so much better, and it's a fantastic way to sharpen and build your skill set. So we've all heard of the 80-20 rule, where you get 80% of the results from 20% of the effort. Well, portraits are exactly the same way. And actually, the vast majority of what makes a portrait good happens in the first 20%. So this exercise is focused on building a rock-solid foundation that you can then build a great portrait on top of. Without this, it's just like building a house on quicksand. It's not going to work. We're going to look at setup, the exercise and what to focus on, how to improve faster, and traps to watch out for. So for this, we're going to be doing a series of timed drawings. Now the go-to is usually 20 minutes. You can extend this a bit more if you're new, maybe 25, maybe 30, but keep it relatively short. Now when it comes to size, especially if you're working traditionally, I recommend working a bit bigger. So working on A3 or A2 paper. If you're outside the UK, that is 12 by 17 inches or 17 by 24 inches, something around those sizes. Now, before we get into the exercise, for the love of God, do not only do this with like the typical Pinterest model that's like 22 that's been heavily photoshopped, has a really bad light source and just like no facial structure whatsoever. It's all just like flat lit. Please do not do that. You will learn so much faster by drawing a wide variety of models, a wide variety of people, age groups, genders, sizes. Draw them all. Make sure you have a variety of references that you're working from. Do not get sucked into just drawing one type of person. It will slow you down tremendously. Also, make sure your reference has a clear light source and shadow. Alright, with that out of the way, you've got your timer, you've got your paper or your iPad, whatever you're drawing on, and you've got a wide variety of references. So the whole point of this exercise, with it being time locked, that you can only go so far. And we only want to focus on 3 things throughout this entire drawing process. The first one is you want to focus on proportions and placement. So getting the big key things in roughly the right place. It doesn't need to be fully drawn in either, just indications of where they should go. Things like the rough head shape, the neck, the ears, the brow line, the nose, the mouth, and the hair. This is just about getting things roughly in the right place. It doesn't need to be, carbon copied one-to-one exact. We're talking generally in the right place that it looks correct. The second thing you want to do in this drawing exercise is focus on adding structure into your drawing. Here we're focused on breaking the head into simple masses and planes. It's very important that when you're painting a portrait, you're thinking about it as a 3-dimensional object and not just a flat surface. We're trying to translate something from 3D to 2D, and we need to think of it as a 3D shape. So this step's all about taking that base proportion that you've built and basically adding some volume, adding some dimension to it by thinking of things in simple, basic forms. If you're not familiar with this, there's loads of great methods you can look at. Some simple ones I always like to kind of look for are things like the forehead planes, the cheekbones, nose, the ball of the mouth, ball of the chin, the eye sockets, and the eyeballs. So the whole goal of this section is to make your drawing feel like it exists in space, has dimension and weight before you've added any tone to it, and taking the time to really stop and think about how you can do that by visualizing and drawing these things through simple, clear forms is going to massively improve your drawings. So finally, what you're going to do once you've got the proportions and the structure in place is you're going to map in the shadows. So I want you to imagine like you're looking at the reference and you're turning it into a stencil, like a Banksy kind of stencil where there's just a black for the darks and nothing for the lights. It's completely blank. And this clear separation is what you're going for. So what your kind of job here is to look at that reference and decide where is the lights, where are the shadows, and clearly separating them out. You don't even have to fill a tone in, just adding a line will do. You can add some tone if you want. And this is an incredibly important step because what it's forcing you to do is basically organize the tones of your portrait. It's so easy, particularly in the beginning when you're starting out, to basically not have strong shadows or strong lights, and everything just kind of washes together and gets muddy. This makes sure there's a very strong, clear separation between the two that you can maintain as you go through the rendering process. So that's the exercise in a nutshell. Map out the proportions, get the structure in there, map out the shadows. And you'll be amazed that once you have a solid foundation like this, how easy it is to take something like that up to a finish. It's drastically easier compared to what you've just done. Now, before we go away and draw, there's a few things you need to watch out for. But before we get into that, if you want help with any of this, with learning the fundamentals, how to practice effectively and review your work, I'm running a one-off special 3-hour portrait drawing workshop. In this, we'll take a deep dive into this kind of structured practice. I'll be demoing out the fundamentals, break it down into key topics and sections, and we'll do targeted practice on each of those. You'll be practicing along with me. There'll be breaks for Q&A and feedback, and you'll leave with some exercises so you can practice long term, knowing how to actually review your work so you can grow over time, not just improve from that one workshop. If that sounds like something you need, there's a link in the description. At the time of posting this, there's 50% off for the next 3 days. Alright, now one thing that's going to make a big difference when it comes to how effective this exercise is for you is not just what you do when you're drawing, but how you actually review it as well. Because if you don't review it, you're just going to end up continually making the same mistakes. So I recommend working in this sequence. You want to do your drawing, and then you want to step away for a couple of minutes, reset your eyes, come back, and then you want to analyze your drawing and the reference. Ask yourself, what went well? What did you find difficult? Where did you go wrong? And then you want to pull out these problem areas and practice them on your next drawing. So for example, if you found that you placed one eye in the right place and one eye in the wrong place, on the next drawing, focus on getting those placed evenly as you're doing it and put extra focus there. In other words, you're not just repeating the same mistakes blindly. You're learning from each one as you go, and this makes all the difference. On top of this, you want to actually take some time every week or 2 weeks and look back over the drawings that you've done and see if there's any consistent mistakes. People tend to have mistakes that slip through and become sort of bad habits over time. So for example, someone might always draw their heads too wide or their eyes too small. And what you want to do here is you want to go back and look and see if you can pull any of these out, make notes of them, and then correct them in your next practice session. And taking the time to do these reviews and actually do targeted practice on the areas that you're struggling with is what really makes a difference between you improving fast or improving slowly. Now here's another couple of traps to watch out for. So if you're new to this, you may find that you're not able to get through all 3 stages in the 20 minutes. That is absolutely fine and completely normal. Even if you only get through the first stage or halfway through the first stage, that is absolutely okay. As you improve and as you get better, you'll naturally start to get through it a little bit faster and have more time to do the second and third stage. So don't feel discouraged. You're doing great. Keep practicing. The second thing I want you to watch out for is that people often learn a specific method, like the Loomis method or the Riley method or the Michael Hampton method, and they think that it's sort of a plug and play method, which it kind of is, but you do not want to get trapped into just using one approach. And what this is great for this exercise is it forces you to kind of combine all the different methods that you've picked up and just use whatever works for you to get those 3 stages done. It doesn't matter if you started Loomis, then switch to Hampton or Houston as you go through. The point is just that you get from nothing to a structured, well-proportioned, mapped in shadows drawing. That's what matters. Whatever method you need to use to get there, go for it. I know it sounds cheesy, but there is one thing you need to do to make sure that you actually get your bang for your buck when you're doing this, and it all comes down to mindset. This is one of those things, if it's wrong, it doesn't matter how much else you're doing right, you can slow down your progress tremendously. And for me, there is 3 key things you want to have when it comes to a good mindset for learning. You can find them out by watching this video.